It was supposed to be a quiet visit, a routine drop-in at one of her most prestigious properties. But what happened next would spark a national conversation about race, power, and accountability inside America's luxury hospitality industry. Black CEO kicked out her own hotel. 9 minutes later, she fired the entire staff. Narrator, VO. Her name is Aisha Carter, self-made billionaire, founder and CEO of Horizon Hospitality Group. She built a hotel empire from the ground up. But on that summer afternoon, none of that mattered. Not her wealth, not her position, not her reputation. Because in that lobby, Aisha was just another black woman. It began just after 3 p.m. Aisha entered the Horizon Grand Hotel in downtown Seattle unannounced, as she often did to stay connected to her properties. She wore a plain black t-shirt, jeans, and sneakers. No entourage, no press, just her. Sound of lobby chatter fades as tension rises. She walked to the front desk, greeted the staff warmly, and asked to speak with the general manager. But the man behind the counter, Gregory Holmes, didn't recognize her. He didn't even look her in the eye. Gregory, ma'am, I'm going to need you to step aside. This area is for guests only. Aisha blinked. Calmly, she clarified. Aisha, I'm not here to check in. I'm the CEO. I'm here to speak with the manager. Gregory scoffed. Gregory, ma'am, this is a private property. If you're causing disruption, I'll have to ask you to leave. Real-time cell phone footage. A woman in the lobby, Sophie Lynn, lifts her phone and starts recording. Sophie, y'all, I think they're kicking out the CEO. 9 minutes. That's how long it took for 3 staff members to surround Aisha, accuse her of trespassing, and threaten to call security. They didn't ask for ID. They didn't search the guest database. They didn't even Google her name. Instead, they assumed. And that assumption almost cost them everything. Footage. Guests beginning to notice, murmurs spread. In the corner of the lobby, a young live streamer named Jacob Reed noticed attention. He hit the go live button on his phone. Within minutes, over 2,000 people were watching the Horizon Grand spiral into a public relations nightmare. Live. Jacob, they're trying to kick this lady out. She says she's the CEO. I just looked her up. She is. This hotel's about to get humbled. Music builds, tension rising. And just when the scene reached its breaking point, Aisha spoke 5 words. Aisha, call Carla. On speaker. Now. The staff hesitated. One of them, Lauren, an assistant manager, smirked and folded her arms. Lauren, Carla who? Aisha, Carla Jenkins, Chief Operating Officer, my second in command. iPhone screen being dialed. FaceTime ringing. Carla's voice crackles through the speaker. Ms. Carter? Are you all right? Gregory, Lauren, and another staff member, Kevin, freeze in place. That's when reality hit. In front of a lobby full of guests. In front of dozens of cell phone cameras. They realized they weren't speaking to a guest. They were speaking to the woman who signs their paychecks. Aisha, everyone stay where you are. You want to witness what accountability looks like. Aisha Carter didn't raise her voice. She didn't argue. She didn't threaten. She simply pulled out her iPad, opened a secure Horizon internal app, and started typing. Aisha, Gregory Holmes, Lauren Dent, Kevin Morris, your employment is hereby terminated effective immediately. Sound fades. Beat of silence. Then gasps. The staff stared in shock. Some guests clapped. One elderly man tipped his hat and said, Guests, thank you for not walking away. Aisha, I've walked away too many times. Not anymore. Montage of cell phone footage going viral. Headlines appearing. Black CEO publicly fires staff in real time after discrimination incident. Reform or rebrand. Horizon Hospitality faces reckoning. When power isn't recognized until it speaks. But this wasn't just a headline. It wasn't just a clapback moment for the internet. For Aisha Carter, it was a turning point. And for Horizon Hospitality, it was the start of something far bigger than any single firing. Because what happened next rewrote the rules. You're dismissed, but the reform is just beginning. The air in the Horizon Grand Lobby had shifted. What started as a confrontation was becoming something else, something sharper, more serious. Aisha Carter had fired 3 staff members in real time, but she wasn't done. She didn't come to settle a grudge. She came to rebuild the system that allowed it to happen. Footage: Gregory, Lauren, and Kevin standing in shock as guests stare. Aisha to Elena, a young concierge nearby. Elena, step forward. You're acting guest services director now. The entire room paused. Elena Ruiz had been quiet throughout the confrontation. Professional, nervous, but composed. Now, she was being given control. Aisha, reset the check-in system. Suspend all pending reservations flagged under Gregory's staff ID. We'll reach out to affected guests with compensation offers. Elena understood. Watching, some recording, some whispering, she's really taking over. Then Aisha turned back to the crowd. Aisha, if any of you experience mistreatment at this hotel today, or ever, my internal team will be stationed in the lobby. I've instructed Nia to open direct communication lines for all guest complaints. You will receive responses within 48 hours. No form letters. No PR fluff. Just answers. Camera cuts to a slow pan across the silent crowd. Then voices begin to murmur support. No one had ever seen something like this happen inside a luxury hotel. Not in front of the marble counters. Not under the crystal chandeliers. But here it was: accountability, not whispered in back offices, but spoken in public. Elena furiously working on computer, shutting down accounts, flagging reservations. Aisha didn't blink. She moved with precision. Aisha, Nia, send an internal alert. Notify regional compliance, diversity operations, and legal. I want a full audit of this property. Guest complaints, suppression logs, staff conduct, all of it. Nia, already in motion. Carla's voice, coming through Aisha's Bluetooth headset. Carla Media's picking this up. Reddit, X, everyone's talking. But you're in control of the narrative. Aisha, good. Let them see what it looks like when a company doesn't just apologize, but acts. Gregory, Lauren, and Kevin still waiting awkwardly, unsure what to do. Aisha, you're dismissed. Your personal belongings will be sent to you. Security will escort you from the premises. You are not to speak to or approach any guests. Elena looks up from the desk. Elena, should I notify building security? Aisha, no. Let them walk. Through the lobby, let every guest see the consequence of unchecked behavior. The 3 walking silently across the lobby. Guests parting. No one claps. No one comforts them. There were no tears. No drama. Just the heavy sound of shoes crossing polished marble. And the silence of accountability finally arriving. Once the doors closed behind them, Aisha turned back to her staff and her guests. Not with relief, but with resolve. This wasn't justice, she later said. This was a beginning. And with those words, Horizon Grand Hotel stopped being just a name carved in stone and became the place where everything changed. But calm. She didn't need to raise her voice to lead. She empowered from the inside out. Aisha, start the reform plan. Top down. Elena, reservation system disabled. All Gregory-linked user logins revoked. Aisha on her phone, pacing as she speaks to internal leads. Aisha, full training recertification. Front desk. Concierge. Management. No grandfather clauses. No shortcuts. Independent firm. 72 hours. Jacob's livestream, now at 10,000 plus viewers. Jacob's livestream had gone viral, now tagged. CEO reclaims hotel. Fire staff in real time. Comments scroll faster than he could read. Jacob, she didn't just fire them. She's rewriting the entire playbook. In real time. Sophie, holding her phone but now walking toward Aisha. Sophie, do you want to keep posting? Aisha, only the truth. That's all I care about. Swells again. Hopeful now. Across the room, guests began to move. Not away, but toward the staff. One man offered to help with luggage. A couple passed out water bottles to other guests. Support, not chaos. The lobby had become something more than a waiting room. It was now part recovery center, part headquarters, a space where power had shifted in real time. Suddenly, a soft ping came from Aisha's phone. Her expression hardened. But just as the energy settled, a darker truth emerged. An internal flag from compliance. She read the notification quietly. Then she spoke, not loudly, but with unmistakable weight. Aisha. Gregory didn't act alone. Carla's voice, now lowered and serious in Aisha's earpiece. Carla, we found records. Gregory falsified complaint summaries. Marked cases resolved when they were never investigated. And there's more. Aisha, go on. Carla, archived communications between Gregory and Michael Turner, former regional director. He retired 3 months ago, under a cloud of HR violations. Turns out, he protected Gregory and Lauren. Aisha closes her eyes, not to escape, but to gather strength. She opens them with a look of surgical clarity. Aisha, we're not just reforming this location. We're initiating a full horizon-wide review. Every flagged employee, every buried complaint, every fake resolution. We're digging it out from the root. Jacob lifts his phone again, asking silently if he can stream that too. Aisha nods. Aisha, people need to know. The rot starts at the root, and we're not trimming branches anymore. Guests whispering, some stunned, others nodding. One woman, elderly, speaks just loud enough for others to hear. Guests, I've waited years to see someone in charge actually do something. And with that, the rebuild began. From one hotel to 57, the scandal that sparked a national reckoning. 3 months had passed since Aisha Carter was humiliated in the lobby of her own flagship hotel, and then turned that moment into history. The marble floors of Horizon Grand were still polished. The velvet chairs still whispered luxury. But something had changed. Something fundamental. Footage of a newly renovated lobby, calm, respectful interactions between staff and guests. Guests no longer entered Horizon Grand bracing themselves to prove they belonged. Now, they walked in with confidence and were met with dignity. Above the front desk, next to the hotel's mission statement, hung a framed portrait of Aisha. Not a glamour shot, not an advertisement. Just her, composed, direct, unapologetically present. Zoom in on the plaque beneath the photo. Beneath the photo, a plaque read, "This space belongs to every guest. No exceptions." And Aisha meant it. This wasn't just about appearances anymore. This was about structural change. And the rest of the country was watching. A split screen of Horizon hotels across the U.S. Horizon Hospitality Group operated 57 hotels across the United States. Within weeks of the Horizon Grand incident, Aisha had launched a sweeping internal review of every single property. Footage of news coverage, headlines scrolling across screen. News Anchor 1. The CEO who fired her staff in real time is now initiating an industry-wide audit. News Anchor 2. Dozens of past complaints previously buried are being re-examined across Horizon's entire network. Old skeletons came out of the closets. Complaint logs that were once resolved turned out to be never even read. Aisha ordered every guest interaction system across all properties to be rebuilt. From scratch. Footage. Staff attending mandatory training, consulting with diversity teams, reading through accountability manuals. She introduced non-negotiable policies, anonymous guest feedback systems, independent compliance boards, mandatory recertification of every manager, concierge, and front desk agent, new equity-focused hiring practices, and most importantly, zero-tolerance enforcement. With teeth, a boardroom-style meeting with Aisha speaking to executives. Aisha, it's not enough to say we're inclusive. We have to prove it. Every single day. Elena Ruiz, now general manager, walking the lobby, and the people who stood up during the chaos were now leading the recovery. Elena Ruiz, the same concierge who'd been frozen at the front desk during the original incident, had now been permanently promoted to general manager. Not just because of her bravery, but because she redefined what leadership looked like at Horizon. Footage of Elena holding a staff meeting, greeting guests, training new employees. She brought empathy into management. She didn't just enforce policies. She listened. And under her leadership, Horizon Grand's guest satisfaction ratings became the highest in the entire company's history. Clips of Jacob Reed and Sophie Lynn speaking at a Horizon internal summit. Even the live streamers who helped break the story, Jacob Reed and Sophie Lynn, were invited to speak at Horizon's internal leadership summit. Jacob, we didn't plan to expose anything. We just refused to put our phones down. Sophie, and honestly, that's what accountability looks like in real time. Internal Horizon meeting. Aisha addressing regional directors. Aisha, we've made mistakes. Deep ones. But what defines us now isn't the failure. It's whether we're willing to turn the light on and keep it on. Testimonials from guests, employees, and former critics. Guests who had witnessed the original incident received personal follow-up calls. Not from PR interns. Not from scripted bots. But from Aisha herself. Overlay of a handwritten note. As if typed on screen. You stood when others looked away. That matters. Aisha Carter. It didn't end there. As the truth kept coming forward, former employees, once silenced or dismissed, began speaking up from other Horizon branches. Dark music enters, softer, investigative tone. One message stood out. A quiet email from a former manager in Portland who had once worked under Gregory. Actor voiceover, male, low and regretful. Former manager. I need to tell you something. Gregory wasn't acting alone. Back then, there were unspoken directives. Regional leadership wanted certain guests deprioritized if they didn't match the brand. It was never in writing, but we all understood it. Aisha didn't explode. She didn't go on the news. She quietly handed the confession to Carla and the legal team, and then issued an internal memo that shook the company to its core. This was never about one bad manager. It was about a culture that allowed him to exist. Aisha Carter. She ordered the creation of an internal task force to review every employee termination over the past 10 years. Those who had been dismissed under subjective conduct violations were given a chance to appeal. Some were reinstated. Others received settlements. Footage of HR reviewing files. Calls being made. Apologies delivered. Footage of HR reviewing files. Calls being made. Apologies delivered. Aisha mandated that no employee could be fired or demoted without a full paper trail. She built a system where truth-telling was not just protected. It was rewarded. Her keynote speech at the Horizon Forward launch. And then she did something few CEOs ever do. She stepped fully into the spotlight and used it to build something new. Aisha, we're launching Horizon Forward, a division dedicated not to slogans, but to measurable outcomes. Because it takes more than policies to rebuild trust. It takes proof. Applause, then text on screen. Horizon Forward, launched. Elena Ruiz named National Advisor for Guest Experience. All 57 Horizon hotels audited and reformed. She didn't just put out a fire. She rewrote the blueprint. From one moment of discrimination, Aisha Carter forged a movement. Text on screen. Hospitality doesn't begin with the smile you give. It begins with the respect you assume. And that is the real legacy of Horizon Grand. Not just a hotel, but a turning point. The legacy of Aisha Carter and the day the industry changed. You might think that after the audits were complete, after the staff were retrained, after the settlements were paid, and the media frenzy had moved on, that the story of Aisha Carter would fade. But no. That moment in the lobby, that 9-minute confrontation, it didn't just echo. It reverberated. National business headlines. Hospitality reinvented. The Carter Standard. CEO who fired staff in real time now leads industry task force. Because Aisha Carter didn't just change a company. She changed the way an entire industry thought about power, presence, and prejudice. Interviews from other CEOs, HR directors, and whistleblowers. Hospitality CEO. We started asking ourselves, do we actually listen to complaints or just manage them? HR director. Her memo became required reading in our leadership orientation. She became a symbol of something rare, not just a woman of color in leadership, but a woman who refused to be tokenized by the very system she ran. She wasn't there to fit in. She was there to dismantle what didn't work. Montage. Quiet scenes of Aisha working. No camera crews, no red carpets. Just her reviewing documents, mentoring young staff, and meeting with employees across the country. But for Aisha, the real reward wasn't in headlines. It was in the whispers that followed. Clips of staff from multiple cities speaking into camera. New hire. My mom worked front desk for 15 years. She never once had a CEO speak her name. Aisha did. Former intern. I met her once. Thought I'd be invisible. She remembered my name a year later. Called me out for promotion. Aisha didn't want fame. She wanted function. She wanted systems that didn't collapse when no one was looking. And she wanted one more thing. To make sure this never happened again. The founding of the ACI, the Aisha Carter Institute for Corporate Integrity. The Aisha Carter Institute for Corporate Integrity opened its doors exactly 1 year after the Horizon Grand incident. Its mission? Not performative DI training, not branding spin, but hard, measurable cultural change. Aisha speaking at the launch, no press, just staff. Aisha, we don't need better PR. We need better patterns. Because culture isn't what we say, it's what we tolerate. Montage. Companies signing pledges, conducting internal audits, hiring cultural compliance officers. Within 6 months, 40-plus companies had signed on. By year 2, the ACI had trained over 20,000 leaders, conducted 9,000 equity audits, and helped reinstate over 300 wrongfully terminated workers. Back to Horizon Grand, new look, inclusive artwork, multilingual signage, sensory-friendly check-in lanes. And Horizon Grand, it became the model, not for being perfect, but for what it looks like when you stop hiding the cracks and start fixing the foundation. There's no plaque for what Aisha did, no statue, no Netflix docuseries, just stories passed from person to person, like the front desk agent in Chicago who refused to profile a guest because she remembered Aisha's words, or the regional manager in Phoenix who rewrote her onboarding script to center respect before profit. One woman, 9 minutes, a hotel lobby, a camera phone, and a decision not to walk away, but to walk back in. Footage replay. The original moment. Aisha returning, revealing she's the CEO, firing staff. That moment became legend, not because of the power it displayed, but because of the power it revealed. She wasn't just fighting for her own dignity. She was fighting for the next guest, the next black woman, the next working-class traveler, with a prepaid reservation and a tired face. She was fighting for us. If you ever find yourself humiliated in a room you built, don't leave quietly. Reclaim it. Aisha Carter, a guest welcomed warmly. A formerly dismissed staffer, now managing. A lobby filled with people who belong. This wasn't just a hotel. This was a mirror. And thanks to Aisha Carter, the industry had no choice but to finally look in it. Aisha Carter, CEO, founder, fixer. Proof that leadership isn't about how high you rise, but how deep you root. If this story moved you, hit subscribe. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. Drop a comment. What would you have done in Aisha's shoes? This isn't just a story. It's a wake-up call. And maybe it's your turn next.